Welcome to BookLeesh, where every page turns into a new adventure. If you're ready to unlock the secrets behind the world's most powerful books and transform the way you think, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that's changed millions of lives by revealing the hidden truths about money, mindset, and freedom. So get comfortable, because what you're about to learn might just change your financial future forever. Let's get started. The two voices that changed everything. He was only 9 years old when he started noticing the cracks in the way adults talked about money. One moment, his highly educated father would tell him, "Go to school, get good grades, and you'll have a secure future." But just a few blocks away, his best friend's dad, who never even finished 8th grade, was running multiple businesses, hiring employees, and building wealth that didn't depend on a paycheck. Robert listened to both. One taught him how to survive. The other taught him how to win. This is where everything begins, not with a financial plan or a spreadsheet, but with confusion, conflict. Two wildly different philosophies from two men he admired. And only one of them was getting rich. Most people never question the money lessons they're taught as kids. They grow up believing that working hard is enough, that saving is smart, that debt is bad. But what if those ideas are the very chains keeping you poor? Robert started asking questions no one else in school was asking. Why do the teachers tell us to study math and science, but never money? Why are the smartest kids always broke? Why are my dad's coworkers losing their jobs, even though they did everything right? His poor dad told him to stop asking dangerous questions. His rich dad smiled and said, "Keep asking. You're waking up." And that's when Robert realized poverty isn't just a bank balance. It's a mindset. The first real lesson didn't come from a textbook. It came from working for 10 cents an hour at one of Rich Dad's small convenience stores. Not because of the money, but because Rich Dad wanted to teach something deeper, how it feels to be undervalued, overworked, and replaceable. When Robert finally snapped and asked, "Why am I working so hard for so little?" Rich Dad replied, "Exactly. That's the question employees never ask. They just keep working harder, hoping the system will reward them." The rich understand the system. Everyone else plays by rules designed to keep them in check. Most people think fear keeps them stuck, fear of losing money, fear of taking risks. But Robert realized the real fear was comfort. Most people are more afraid of discomfort than they are of poverty. They'll stay in jobs they hate, marriages that suffocate them, and bank accounts that barely float, because the unknown is scarier than a slow financial death. At just 9, he started seeing it. The hamster wheel, the trap, the rat race. Poor Dad called it responsibility. Rich Dad called it a lie. He watched how Poor Dad's world revolved around earning a paycheck to pay bills. But Rich Dad's world was about building assets, businesses, cash flow. One dad believed in income. The other believed in freedom. And the difference between them wasn't intelligence. It was mindset. By the end of that summer, Robert wasn't just learning how to make money. He was learning how the world actually works. He saw it in the small details. The way the rich talked about money like a tool, not a goal. The way they taught their kids through experience, not lectures. The way they let money work for them instead of chasing it every day. That's when it clicked. The poor work for money. The rich make money work for them. It sounds simple, but this idea would change everything. Not just for Robert, but for anyone willing to listen. And that's just the beginning. Part 2. The lie you were taught about work and wealth. Robert started watching the world differently after that summer. He saw adults panic when bills came. He saw couples argue over money in hushed tones behind closed doors. He saw teachers pouring their hearts into jobs that paid barely enough to survive. He kept hearing the same phrase, "Work hard and the money will come." But every time he asked Rich Dad about it, the response was simple: working hard is only one part of the formula. If that's all you rely on, you'll always be chasing money, never catching it. At first, it didn't make sense. Robert had been taught, Like most of us, that effort equals reward. That if you just grind long enough, the universe would somehow repay your loyalty. But Rich Dad challenged that idea. If hard work guaranteed wealth, every construction worker would be a millionaire. It hit him. The equation was incomplete. Because the world doesn't pay you based on effort. It pays you based on value. And more importantly, ownership. Rich Dad pointed to assets. Things that put money in your pocket even when you're asleep. He pointed to real estate, to intellectual property, to businesses that generate cash flow. He asked, "What's your father's biggest asset?" Robert thought for a moment. His house. Rich Dad smiled sadly. That's not an asset. That's a liability. It takes money out of his pocket every month. It was the first time Robert heard this concept, and it completely shattered his worldview. The house that society called an investment was actually draining his family's finances, not growing them. He learned that an asset isn't what the bank says it is. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out. Simple. Unforgiving. True. Poor Dad believed in the myth of stability. He told Robert to buy a house, pay it off over 30 years, and work his way up the career ladder. Rich Dad believed in leverage. He showed him how to use money, not just earn it. How to let money become his employee. The more Robert listened, the more he realized he was being raised in two realities. One reality said, save money. Live below your means. Play it safe. The other said, invest in knowledge. Grow your means. Take calculated risks. And these realities weren't just about money, they were about identity. Poor Dad's voice was the voice of the majority, cautious, stressed, dependent on a paycheck. Rich Dad's voice was rare. It was calm, curious, focused on freedom. Robert watched as his biological father, a brilliant man, loved and respected, struggled financially for most of his life. Promotions came, raises came, but so did new bills, more taxes, bigger expenses. He watched his rich dad buy a commercial property and let tenants cover the mortgage while building equity every year. That was the real-world education Robert was getting. No grades, no report cards, just results. He started realizing how broken the school system was, teaching kids how to pass tests, but never how to manage a credit score, invest in real estate, or understand compound interest. "Why don't they teach us how money works in school?" he asked. Rich Dad replied, "Because the system is designed to produce employees, not owners." That line would stay with Robert for decades. He saw it everywhere. Young people graduating with degrees, proud and excited, only to spend 40 years paying off debt for an education that never taught them how to create wealth. He began to understand what Rich Dad meant when he said, "The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them." But it wasn't just about investing. It was about thinking differently. It was about control. About learning to read numbers the way a mechanic reads an engine or a pilot reads an instrument panel. That's when Robert started keeping a notebook. Every time he spent money, he asked, "Did this make me richer or poorer?" And slowly, a new mindset was forming. Money wasn't evil. Money wasn't emotional. Money was a tool, a teacher, a mirror. It exposed what you didn't know. And if you didn't learn how to control it, it would always control you. And most people, Robert realized, were controlled. Controlled by fear of losing it. Controlled by the comfort of a paycheck. Controlled by the myth that working harder was the answer to everything. He was waking up. And the system didn't like that. Because the moment you see the machine, you stop being a cog in it. Part 3. The trap you don't know you're in. Robert started to see the trap, not just in his father's life, but everywhere. At school, his classmates were already being groomed to chase grades, impress authority, and land safe jobs. At home, the conversations were always about bills, prices, and the rising cost of living. And at night, his poor dad would fall asleep with the same worry lines on his face, even though he had tenure, degrees, and respect. Something wasn't adding up. Because the more Robert learned from his rich dad, the more obvious it became. Most people are not financially free because they're emotionally imprisoned. Not by poverty, by fear, by desire. Fear of being broke keeps people running on the hamster wheel. Desire for more comforts, a bigger TV, a nicer car, the next vacation, keeps them spending everything they earn. Robert watched it happen every day. Paycheck comes in. Stress goes down. New expense shows up. Stress comes back. So they work harder. Maybe get a raise. Then buy more stuff. And the cycle starts over. His rich dad called it the rat race, a trap where people think they're making progress, but are actually running in place. It's not that people don't make money. It's that their emotions, fear, and greed control how they use it. He realized that's why so many smart people stay broke. They get just enough money to feel good, then just enough fear to stay obedient. Rich Dad said, "The moment you feel fear, most people don't think. They react. They don't stop to analyze. They don't ask, is this expense moving me closer to freedom or pulling me further away?" Instead, they act from emotion. They buy safety. They buy status. They buy approval. And every time they do, they lose a little more control. Robert began to understand the biggest secret about money. You don't have to be rich to escape the rat race. You have to be financially intelligent. His rich dad didn't tell him to suppress fear or ignore desire. He taught him to become aware of them, to see them clearly, to use them, not be used by them. It started with one simple act, learning the language of money. Not just dollars and cents, but cash flow, income statements, balance sheets. At first, it was boring. Numbers on a page. But then Robert realized these numbers were like a map. A code. A way to see whether you were free or trapped. Poor Dad avoided these numbers. He left it to accountants and tax preparers. Rich Dad said, "That's like driving a car without knowing what the dashboard means." Most people don't track their income. They don't understand their expenses. They don't even know how much money they spend each month. They just hope there's enough at the end of the paycheck. Hope is not a strategy. Robert saw this lesson unfold one afternoon when his poor dad proudly brought home a new car, financed, of course. It was sleek, it was shiny, and it came with a 5-year payment plan. That same week, Rich Dad bought another rental property, a small duplex. One of those purchases created freedom. The other created debt. One added to a portfolio of assets that generated cash flow. The other added to a pile of monthly obligations. And yet, to the outside world, both men looked successful. That's when it hit Robert. Wealth isn't about appearances. It's about systems. Rich Dad had systems that created income, even when he slept. Poor Dad had salary, status, and stress. So Robert began to ask different questions. Instead of, "How can I afford that?" he asked, "What asset can I build that will pay for this?" That one shift changed everything. He stopped looking for jobs. He started looking for opportunities. He stopped asking, "What do I want to buy?" and started asking, "What can I own?" Fear never disappeared. It was still there, the fear of failure, of losing money, of looking stupid. But now, Robert understood something. The more financially intelligent you become, the less fear controls you. Because fear feeds off confusion. And clarity kills fear. That's what Rich Dad had been teaching all along. Most people are taught to fear risk. But what they should fear is not understanding the game they're playing. Every time someone says, "I'm not good with money," Robert hears what they're really saying. "I gave up control." And the moment you give up control, the trap snaps shut. Part 4. The secrets the rich don't want you to know. Robert's lessons with Rich Dad were shifting from simple money ideas to something much bigger, the rules of the financial game. He started to realize that most people are playing a game they don't understand. using pieces that don't belong to them and expecting to win anyway. One afternoon, Rich Dad sat him down and said, "Robert, the rich don't work for money. They make money work for them in a way the average person can't even imagine." Robert thought he understood that already. But this was different. It was about the system, the laws, the structures built into society. Rich Dad explained that the rich use corporations not just to shelter income, but to pay less tax legally, protect their assets, and create layers of financial security that the average person never learns about. Robert's poor dad paid taxes on every dollar he earned. Rich Dad's corporations paid less tax because they were structured differently. It wasn't cheating. It was knowledge. Robert was stunned. He realized that financial education wasn't just about budgeting or investing in stocks. It was about learning the language of money, law, and power. He learned that money flows to those who understand the rules before they play. Rich Dad taught him how corporations act like shields. They create separation between personal and business assets, limiting risk and multiplying opportunity. This was a whole new level of financial strategy. He saw how this knowledge allowed the rich to buy properties with other people's money, reinvest earnings tax-free, and grow businesses without draining their personal savings. But this wasn't just about making money faster. It was about protecting what they had already built. Robert's poor dad worried about losing money. Rich Dad worried about making money work harder. And while Robert's poor dad was trapped in job security, paying taxes on every paycheck, Rich Dad was building empires one smart move at a time. It was a revelation. But it also brought a new conflict. How could Robert apply these lessons when he was young, with little money and no special connections? Rich Dad smiled and said, "Start with what you have. Learn to see assets where others see expenses. Learn to negotiate. Learn to build networks. Learn to read financial statements. That's the real wealth." Robert learned that the biggest asset isn't money, it's financial education. Because without it, money slips through your fingers like sand. This was the secret the schools, the media, and even his own family never told him. And it made him question everything about the life he was expected to lead. Because in the end, financial freedom isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep, how hard your money works, and how many people you have working for you. Robert started building his first small business ventures, using these lessons bit by bit. Some failed. Some barely made a dime. But each one was a step closer to understanding the game. He began to see money not as a destination, but as a process, a tool to create freedom. At the same time, he saw people around him stuck in fear, afraid to invest, afraid to fail, afraid to break free from the chains of a paycheck. But Rich Dad told him, fear is normal. What matters is what you do with it. Robert's journey wasn't easy. It wasn't smooth. But with every failure and every lesson, he was learning the truth no school ever taught. If you want to be rich, you have to think and act differently. You have to be willing to question authority, question tradition, question everything you believe about money. Because the moment you do, you start to see the world as it really is, a game. With rules. And winners. And losers. And the choice of which one you become? It's yours. Part 5. The mindset that changes everything. By now, Robert wasn't just hearing lessons, he was living them. He had faced his fears, challenged his beliefs, and stepped into a world few ever see. What made the difference wasn't just money or knowledge. It was mindset. He realized that the rich think differently about failure, risk, and opportunity. Where most see danger, they see possibility. Where most see loss, they see lessons. Robert learned that true wealth is freedom, freedom of time, choice, and peace of mind. He saw that money is simply a tool, not the goal. What truly matters is how you use that tool to design your life. He learned to embrace risk, but with knowledge. To seek education, not just certification. To build assets, not liabilities. And perhaps most importantly, to keep learning. because the world changes fast and the game changes with it. He also understood that money alone can't buy happiness or meaning. It can only give you the option to pursue those things on your terms. Robert's journey was about more than escaping poverty. It was about breaking free from fear, confusion, and limitation. It was about becoming financially intelligent. So, what can you take from his story? Start by questioning what you've been taught. Ask yourself, what is an asset? What do my expenses really cost me? How do I react to fear around money? Am I working to live or living to work? Next, invest in your financial education. Read books. Talk to mentors. Learn how money works, not just how to make it. Begin small. Look for assets you can own, not just expenses you can afford. Build systems that generate cash flow, even if it's only a little at first. Understand taxes and legal structures. They're not just for the rich, they're tools anyone can learn. Finally, realize this. Your mindset is the most powerful asset you have. Your thoughts shape your actions. Your actions build habits. Your habits create your future. Robert's two dads taught him two opposing lessons. One showed him how to survive financially. The other showed him how to thrive. The difference wasn't money. It was perspective. And now, that perspective is yours too. Because financial freedom isn't a secret reserved for the lucky or the privileged. It's a game, and anyone willing to learn the rules can win. If you're ready to take control, to challenge what you believe, and to build a life where money works for you, then Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just a book. It's a blueprint, a wake-up call, a revolution waiting to start with you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly appreciate your attention and hope these insights have sparked new ideas and motivation for your own financial journey. If you found this review valuable and want to dive deeper into more stories, tips, and life-changing lessons, make sure to subscribe and join our community. Your support means the world to me, and together, we'll keep growing, learning, and winning. Hit that subscribe button now. Let's keep this journey going. If you're ready to change the way you think about money and take control of your financial future, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the book you need in your hands. It's more than just a book. It's a wake-up call that challenges everything you've been taught about wealth and success. Give it a read, and you'll discover practical lessons, eye-opening stories, and powerful mindset shifts that can transform your life. Don't just listen to what I've shared, experience it yourself. Your journey to financial freedom starts with the first page. Trust me, this book is worth every minute.